We tell you why you shouldn't have a political party. We diffuse the dumb news bombs the media brought you this week. And we give you the real news. I'm Matt Field, and this is Ditch Your Political Party podcast. First off, a little bit about my background. I decided to start this podcast because I got sick and tired of the media spewing out a bunch of illogical nonsense, essentially. And my effort was to create this podcast to sort through all the media that takes place throughout the week and to tell you what actually happened in this moment right now. The issue is that, there's a lot of stories we'll discuss today that when it originally came out, there was a myriad of things that had happened. And so the effort is that we do this weekly, so you don't have to worry about the craziness all week long. And on Friday, you'll hear the news, you'll be fine, and you can go on to your weekend. I come from a business background. I continue to work in business. I do a lot of things. I've started my own businesses, and this is one of the main points. This is why logic is so important to me, because I know how a business has to function, and it obviously isn't the way that the federal government works. I am a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and obviously I can't be totally unbiased because of that, and because of my business background, and because of a ton of other reasons. But we do our best, I will do my best, to make sure that I am as logical as I can. And the reason I say to ditch your political party, because growing up in Utah, I started, my parents were Republican, and so I naturally was a Republican when I first signed up. Later on, I got sick of the Republican Party, and I filed as an independent. And then I got tired of some of the things happening there. So I am unaffiliated. I am unaffiliated with any political party. And that is for a very specific purpose, because I support some Democrats, I support some independents, I support some Republicans, I support people all across the board. And it is merely because there are logical principles that they apply that will actually work. So there's something that I like to call rules to determine logical morality. And this logical morality is the combination of logic and morality, obviously. So logic is a science that deals with principles and criteria of validity and demonstrates that science inform principles of reasoning. Morality are principles concerning the distinction between right and wrong, okay, good and evil, good and bad behavior. So in order for us to really dissect the different principles that we'll be talking about today, and not to mention the principles but also the news that's happened this past week, is by following these different principles in logical morality. One of them is it sustainable? The millennials today and a lot of other people are concerned about sustainability. A logical behavior, a logical action is sustainable. Okay? And then there's another criteria that can apply. When it is applied in an extreme, what is the result? What is the end result? So, an example of this is murder. Let's take an extreme one. Is murder bad? In morality and in logic. If you shoot someone and everybody decides to shoot someone, we would all be dead. Pretty basic, applied in the extreme. Nor is it sustainable. The last one is, who does it benefit? And it cannot be someone it can't benefit one party or individual, nor at the expense of another. So, in the example of someone shooting someone else, if you shoot somebody, that obviously does not benefit the other party. That kills the other party. So, it is not sustainable. It does not work when applied in the extreme, and it only benefits one party if you were to shoot somebody. So, those would all be illogical, and that would be illogical and immoral. So, real quick, what's the difference between, we're kind of meshing together the logical and the moral together here. But there's something I wanted to make a distinction on. Oftentimes we hear about, is it legal? And in our society today, if the federal government or a state government says that, hey, this is legal, this is okay, you can do it now, that is almost applied on a moral standard. There's a difference between legal and lawful. Lawful is a totally different concept. This is the higher law. This is God's law. This is something that that is inherently known throughout the universe in many ways, and it's better than what is legal. Man can make laws, but lawful is always lawful, right? It's the mother nature, if you will. It does not matter if it's illegal to have an earthquake. It's happening anyway. You can't stop it. Obviously, that's a illogical. That would be obviously an illogical law, because it would not. There's no way it could be prevented. But there are a lot of other things that apply to the legal and lawful, and we'll get more and more into that as we go throughout this year, throughout the things that we discuss, and why something is legal and something is lawful. So when you consider something on a logical basis, it's entirely based on facts and not qualitative data. We won't consider the party, the race, the gender, or any other aspect outside the logical things. What is smart is smart. What is dumb is dumb, regardless of who it's coming from. So that's what we're going to drive. That's what we're going to try and drive. We'll try and avoid the hyperbole. We'll try to avoid bias, though it's practically impossible. But we are going to apply logic the best we can and avoid too much emotion in the things that we talk about, because we know that can get things out of hand. First, are you a business owner? Do you have inventory of products, components, or ingredients that you no longer need? Are you dying to liquidate the inventory so you can have cash you need to invest more effectively in your business? Is it to the point where you're about to shut your doors? If you're battling with surplus or excess inventory, use Excess Supply List. They put the balance back in your favor. Excess Supply List is where you can list any excess inventory you have of anything for free. Go to accesssuppplylist.com, click on Publish Ad for Free, and get it done. You literally have nothing to lose. So go to accesssuppplylist.com, list your excess or surplus inventory, and get cash back in your pocket now. accesssuppplylist.com, accesssuppplylist.com. Now, we're going to start on a section I want to call Diffusing the Fool Bombs. So, Nathan Phillips, this past week, so basically this is news, in my opinion, well, not in my opinion, in the logical reasoning of things, should not be news. Okay? There's a man that went to, during the March for Life, Nathan Phillips. He went in and he was banging a drum, he was singing some different things, and there was a conclusion made, there was an insinuation made that because of a boy that was there, he walked right up to, and there was an insinuation made that he was racist, he was this, he was that. He was the epitome of the Trump party. There were so many things that came after this poor kid because the fact he was wearing a MAGA hat, Make America Great Again, but it was also based on the idea that the media could see into his thoughts. They could see into what he was saying, and they spoke for him. Now, obviously, this is completely ridicule. If everyone can assume what you were thinking, what kind of world we live in? It would be complete and utter chaos. Okay? I mean, that's probably how it is in some of your lives today. It is not logical. It is illogical to the nth degree. So, if this is illogical, to make draw this conclusion based on very, very little evidence, what have we found throughout the week? So originally, this kid was hostile. Nathan Phillips felt endangered. He felt like he was in danger. He was going to be injured in some way. As he goes around and the media interviews him, it makes him feel like $1 million. We later learn that Nathan Phillips was actually, he said he served in Vietnam. He didn't serve in Vietnam. He said that the people came up to him, they were trying to intimidate him. That didn't happen. And there's a bunch of different things. His history, he went to Eastern Michigan University, and he was claiming a bunch of different things that had happened that hadn't happened, or was disprovable. And he also went and disrupted a mass at one point. The idea was that people came around him and were taunting him or trying to hurt him, and that's why he felt so in danger. He felt in danger. But the fact of the matter is this guy has a history of trying to disturb peaceful gatherings, trying to disturb these different things. Now, I know that they said there were comments that came out from these high school students, but those that were in that high school weren't making those comments. They were literally waiting for their bus. That's it. So why is this a story? Logically, there is no reason why there should be a story. This sort of thing probably happens every single day. What this man did, he came up to someone else and got in their face, essentially. And that's all that happened. This happens every single day. Why is it? The only reason it's a story is because it happened during the March for Life, which people are opposed to. There's a political motivation to undermine that in some way, unfortunately. And so they weren't reporting the news. They were promoting, logically, you can draw the conclusion that they were promoting something else outside what was actually happening. Because this happens every single day. The thing that bothers me the most about this, and the media is using this power to target a young kid like this. There was an interview that was given by Savannah Guthrie, and she asked, do you think that maybe talking to the boy, I don't want to mention his name because I hope that it's forgotten immediately, because what has begun here is completely ludicrous. Talking to the boy, she says, do you feel any responsibility at all? Would you like to say sorry in any way? I'm paraphrasing. And I wish he would have turned it around on her. He said, I don't feel like I did anything wrong, blah, blah, blah. But I wish he would have turned it around on her and said, do you feel like you should say sorry? Do you feel like what you've done is wrong? Do you feel like what you've been doing to me, someone, an innocent bystander, literally standing there and just gave a smile, had been insinuated to some serious racial crimes and all these different things, and had been basically made the whipping boy for something that you didn't like? I wish he had turned it around. I wish that the firm they'd hired had encouraged something like that. But that didn't happen, and that's fine. Nothing on him. The poor guy's been dragged through the mud long enough. The funny thing is they will go after a kid who has nothing to do with basically anything political, outside the fact that he wore a MAGA hat, and then they'll defend someone like Matt Lauer, right? Someone who clearly had some morality problems. He was disloyal to his wife. He was disloyal to a bunch of other principles that we won't dive into. But they'll defend someone like that, but they'll try and attack and basically try to destroy a young kid before he's even graduated from high school. Now, that's not logical. Now, there's a lot of different things that have passed throughout the week that doesn't make any sense either, which is another reason why if you're jumping on the bandwagon, so without driving it too far, right, those that have really been pushing this whole MAGA hat thing are those on the left. Okay, those on the left, if you're on the left, if you're associated with a party on the left and you're jumping on this bandwagon, think about what you're doing right now. You are attacking a good kid because he did nothing, because he was in the wrong place at the wrong time, because for some reason a silly video went viral and it was taken completely out of context. And has anyone seen Incredibles 2? If you have, you know what I'm talking about. In Incredibles 2, there's a part where they put these goggles over somebody's eyes, and the person on the other end of those goggles can control that person. They're like hypnosis goggles, basically. If you are in the process of getting on board with this kid, and attacking this kid, then you are in the wrong place. You have on some goggles that you are literally taking orders from some higher ups, and it doesn't make any sense. If this were your kid, and they were just standing there, how would you feel? It's interesting how people are so quick to make a judgment when they themselves want the benefit of the doubt. So, Another piece of garbage news, and it wouldn't be inaccurate to call it garbage, because where do you put things that are completely worthless and have no meaning? The garbage. Okay, so I hope that this ends. There's been some more accurate media coverage on this as things have progressed, not with everybody, but with some. But it shouldn't be like this to begin with. The fact that this is happening is just, if you could stop watching the news. Stop watching the news, their ratings will drop, money will dry up, and they'll just have to stop. And ditch the political party. Again, if you are jumping on the bandwagon to come after this kid and to support Nathan Phillips, who clearly has his priorities mixed up along with the rest of the media that are promoting this, then get off. Get off. You need to stop voting for the D's and the R's and the I's just because they're D's, R's, or I's. You need to vote for those people that consider principles logically and have a good history of making something happen in a good way that's going to promote good things. We'll talk a little bit more about that in a little bit as I get to real news. Another bomb that we need to defuse. I want to make mention of this because this is another thing that was taken completely out of context. It goes back to this viral concept that if something is a viral video, then there must be some sense of validity to it. It must be true. It has to be true. But that is wrong. Okay? There was another video that went out that was taken out of context talking about Ben Shapiro. He's on the radio. He's a conservative podcaster, and he said some things about baby Hitler. Okay? And people just took the phrase baby Hitler and blew it out of proportion. And they sent around a very small clip of him talking about abortion at the March for Life, right? And so the people that were there listening to him, he was giving the example of, if you are pro-life, you would not go back in time and kill baby Hitler, right? Because at the time he was a baby, and we hadn't any idea what he was going to do in his life. He said, presumably the best thing you would do is you take the baby and put it in a better family, which would encourage better growth. But that was taken out of context, and even the clip that was sent around was still massively misunderstood. I don't understand, even the clip that was sent around, how people missed what it was. They just heard baby Hitler and they went crazy. I don't really understand why. He was what he was doing is he was applying a logical principle here actually too, is that if you were able to kill these babies, all over the place. Anyway, well, I'm jumping ahead of myself. So, real quick, then there was Governor Cuomo. In relation to this, he presented a new law about abortion. And his goal was to essentially allow a woman to commit an abortion just before they were about to be born. Okay? On the day of its birth. They could literally do this. And so let's talk about the abortion logic here real quick. So if it's applied in the extreme, if everybody is committing an abortion, is it sustainable? It would not be sustainable. This process is not sustainable. It's not sustainable on a logical side of things. And then it goes into morality. Because at that point, once you have something that benefits one individual and only one party alone, then there's an issue. I'm not talking about political parties. I'm talking about the mother who is deciding to have this abortion. You can believe all you want if that child in your stomach is alive or not. But at the end of the day, if we found, let's apply the scientific definition of life. If we go to Mars and they find a tiny little cell that is living there and they're thriving, we would consider it life. So why is there a difference in application here? The logical conclusion that I can draw is that abortion is for the benefit of the mother, not for the benefit of the baby. So, since it's only benefiting one party, it would therefore be illogical and immoral. And that's my issue with it. I'm, like I said, I'm a member of the Church of Jesus Christ of Latter-day Saints, and we do not, and the church doesn't promote anything like that. And they do it on a basis of several spiritual reasons, but just the logical and moral reasons should be enough for most people. Because why are women getting abortions? I mean, there's a million reasons, I'm sure. There are the extreme, right? There are the extreme reasons where it's incest or it's rape. Those things happen. We understand that they happen. But at the same time, when that argument is presented, when the counter argument is presented, well, if we accepted the idea that you could have an abortion in the case of rape and incest, would you accept the case that you shouldn't have abortions if you are a capable individual? And of course, the argument doesn't go both ways, and that's, for some reason, that doesn't happen, and that itself is illogical. So we have to apply the same principle across the board. If life can be a cell, it can be this, it can be that, why is the life in the stomach of the woman any different, whether it was conceived in incest or it was conceived in rape? Not to mention, those are extremely far fringe. Now, the regular reasons are, I'm not ready. I don't want to have a baby. I wasn't logically considering my options when I decided to engage in the activity in which I am able to create a baby. So if you're deciding not to use contraceptives, you're an adult, so get over it. Okay, if you don't want to have the baby and it's sitting in your stomach right now, in the womb right now, get over it. You need to move on. Because if you're trying to engage something that is completely illogical and immoral, it's wrong. I mean, for some reason, the line between right and wrong has been so fuzzed, and all you have to do is apply logical principles and you can see it again. So, Governor Cuomo was praised for essentially bringing some more immorality into the world, and for the very small reason of, when you do something specifically for yourself, it is selfishness, and this is exactly that. I'm talking the majority of it being as that. So anyway, that's another piece of dumb news that should not have been in the media. So now let's go on to, so how do we solve the a quick little piece here on how do we actually solve the media. Right now, if you do something wrong in the media, you have to write, there's a lawsuit that's issued, and you have to write a retraction. Right? If you're a newspaper, you write the retraction and you put it on page 999. Okay? Because you don't want anyone to see it. You don't want anyone to see your faults. Okay? Nobody wants to see their faults, to be honest. Right? And that's why everyone does whatever they can to get rid of it, to get rid of those faults. But if we want to eliminate the whole process of people doing things wrong in the media, you have to give them the same punishment that they delivered. Right? The punishment must meet the crime. So if somebody, for example, the MAGA hat kid, I feel so sorry for him. I feel so sorry for him that this entire thing happened with a bunch of professional adults, supposedly professional adults, go after this kid and destroy him for standing and smiling. So this very thing, this is ludicrous, of course, and who would have thought it would ever be a media story? But they have done hours and hours and hours of defamatory language, liable information that is that has gone unpunished, essentially. Some of them have slowly, very slowly but in my opinion, if there was a law that was crafted, this is one of the few times when I'm okay with a law, because most of the time laws just cause problems. But when a law is issued to the media that says, if you do something wrong and they file a suit and it is found in the the plaintiff or in the prosecutor's favor, then your retraction must be as long and hit as many people as you did when you originally printed the news. How quickly would we clean up our media? How quickly? Okay, if the retraction was actually a retraction. If for the next several hours they talked about how stupid they were for going after a kid that was wearing a hat, that for some reason causes everybody to lose their mind. I mean, what? There is no logic there. There is zero logic there. But logic, for some, it's old news. It doesn't matter anymore. And that shouldn't be the case. Anyways, let's go on to the next bit that, again, doesn't really... Another piece of garbage news that we are going to diffuse for you. BuzzFeed, the incredible BuzzFeed, said that Cohen was instructed, Michael Cohen, the attorney of the president, President Trump, said Michael Cohen was instructed to lie to prosecute to the FBI and everybody else, but not much later, the Mueller investigation, the one that is investigating this entire thing, came back and said that didn't happen. They debunked it. But BuzzFeed continues to defend their reporting, and other members of the media are taking their word for it. So the source, we always talk about, let's get the information from the horse's mouth, and Robert Mueller is that horse. And they got the information from Robert Mueller, but BuzzFeed is still committed. Have you ever met that person who, after they have been found in their lie, they continue to defend the lie? It's incredible. I have a friend who I caught them in their lie, and they continue to defend that lie, even though it was clearly a lie. Everybody else knew it too, but whatever. You can just laugh. When people are moronic that long, I mean, you just gotta start feeling sorry for them, right? No, you don't feel sorry for them. You get them to change. You get them to be better, or you just ignore the behavior. That's why you stop watching news and just listen to us, or listen to other areas that don't report on news constantly and let things develop before they pursue it. All right. So, real quick, I just want to talk. Excuse me. I just want to talk about AOC, I can't say her name right now. AOC, who is Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. There's a recent poll that came out that said that 74% of, I'm trying to remember if it was Democrats. I'm pretty sure 74% of the Democrats would vote for her if she was eligible to run for president. And again, as always, we want to ditch our political party anyways. Okay? We don't want to follow what the Democrats are saying. We don't want to follow what the Republicans are saying, what the independents are saying, what anybody is saying. We want to use our basic logic and morality to determine what is the best option. Because when you go to vote for president in 2 years, or you go to vote for any particular individual, you need to make sure their principles are surrounded by, the things that they are trying to offer are surrounded by logic and morality. Okay? You don't just listen to what the little bird, the little Republican bird is telling you and do what they say. You don't listen to what they say and then proceed forward. You need to sit and contemplate what is right and what is wrong. Now, a quick example, in the local town I live here, there was my wife and I, we had been participating in this community garden. And the community garden had a lot of participants. It was doing really well, but they built a great big park right next to it. And so this park was it was a pretty impressive park. It was a big, it was like a dinosaur type park, and it was all abilities. There's just so many things that you could do. There was a train going through it. A pretty impressive park. And on some of the days, there were some really big days during the holidays where it would just get packed. The parking lot would get packed. And so I guess the mayor and the city council started to get complaints about it. And so what they were going to do is they were going to They proposed that they were going to remove the community garden. Well, that put my wife and I in full defense mode. And so I went on radio shows, I went to city council, I went everywhere, and I explained to them the logic of the situation. We went over and counted how many people were at the height of the day, and it wasn't anywhere close to where they had to accommodate additional parking by tearing down the community garden. And so, but it didn't matter. It didn't matter. Logic did not make a dent in this particular situation. And so what I did is, on one of the radio shows I was on, I advocated that you vote to solve this problem. You get rid of the mayor. Get rid of those community members, I can't think of their names right now. Anyway, you get rid of the standing government right now and get someone in there that will represent you in a logical and moral way. Because destroying the community garden for some parking lot that won't have anybody in it in another 6 months is illogical and stupid. Unfortunately, he was reelected because, let's face it, in Utah, everyone's going to vote for the Republican on the ballot and not for things that are, or the most recognizable name, let's be real. And so that's what happened. And this is the same sort of idea with Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. 74% of Democrats would vote for her if she were eligible. Why? Why is she popular? What has she done? What has she done in her previous life before becoming a politician that would motivate you to vote for her? Is it rhetoric? How far does rhetoric get you? I talk to people every single day. I've started several businesses, and I talk to people every single day that tell me about their business ideas and how great they are and how they would really affect the world and every single time I'm like, great, go do it. Great, go do it. I've got a friend who will literally send me a business idea every couple months and say, what do I got to do to make this happen? And I'll send him a great big long email, explain to them what I believe should happen. I'm not the expert at everything, but if there's anything I can do to help promote someone's dream that is logical and moral, then I will do it. And so I have done that, and I haven't seen any fruits come from that. They aren't willing to take any action. You can have great ideas all you want, all day long, but if you do not decide to act, it does not do you a bit of good. So Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I do not see the evidence whereby she would be a good president. She gets a lot of media attention for reasons I'm not entirely sure why. There's some conclusions I can draw, but I'm not sure why she would be considered a presidential serious candidate. She is, in her previous life, she was a bartender. Nothing against bartenders, but how does that qualify you to move large programs forward? I don't know. And at the same time, logical thinking isn't always, there are flaws to logical thinking, that's for sure. And so I don't want to stomp on someone that would be potentially a good candidate for president, or potentially, by the time you get to president, you can't have any, I don't want to stomp on someone that says, hey, I want to start this business. Well, did you think of this? Did you think of that? Did you think of that? And a lot of times they haven't, but that's why they talk about it, and then they can address those issues. I was recently on a call yesterday about launching a new company, and just kind of considering the different costs that would be associated with the advertising and everything else like that. And there were things they brought forward to me that I hadn't realized. But what I did is I went back and I started researching it, and I found the answer that I needed in order to move forward. So there's nothing wrong with people having big dreams, and there's nothing wrong with people doing that. But when you have someone that's literally going to be a representative for you in your area, or the President of the United States, they better have had several successes in their lives in showing that they have been able to move from point A to point Z several times before you're going to want them in office. They can't just be a great talker. It doesn't make sense. Now, Donald Trump is kind of is also kind of on the. I didn't vote for Donald Trump, to be honest with you. He didn't pass when it came to the logical and the immoral side of things, he didn't pass my test, so I didn't vote for him. But he has done things that have been logical and have been moral, even though his personal life is illogical and immoral in many, many ways. So he's not something even though I like some of the things he's done now, he's still not someone I would vote for later on. But AOC, Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez, I wouldn't vote for her either, because as far as I can tell, she's just a young girl that has some charisma, and people like her. And unfortunately, likability is one of the biggest factors when it comes to voting, and it shouldn't be. Everyone, ditch your political party, ditch your political party, ditch your political party. You need to stop looking at the letter next to their name. Vote for the person that most encompasses your values, logical and moral principles that will guide this country and to help this country come back from where it's been. We'll talk more about real news here in a second. But before we get into that, I'm going to tell you a little bit about one of our next sponsors. Do you live the Paleo, Keto, AIP, or SCD diet? This is the Keto, Autoimmune Paleo, or the specific carbohydrate diet. If you know Paleo, you're going to know some of these others. And are you struggling with an autoimmune disease? Has the medication stopped working? Have you tried dieting to remove inflammation from your diet and body? If you are willing to look at things holistically, look at Primal Health and Nutrition. Primal Health and Nutrition started when a sister educated a brother and a brother helped a sister. Their line of 100% paleo, keto, specific carbohydrate, SCD, and AIP proteins are #1 on the market. They're the cleanest option available and taste great. Go to primalhn.com and use promo code DYPP, ditch your political party, at checkout to get 20% off your entire order. If you've tried the conventional way of healing, if you're tired of the conventional way of healing, let Primal Health and Nutrition help you along the holistic path. Go to primalhn.com and use DYPP at checkout. Again, primalhn.com, DYPP at checkout to let them know we sent you. So the next bit, now we're going into real news. This is actually stuff that matters. It's actually something that should be of a small bit of, should be of great concern to everyone in the nation. But it usually takes the back seat because no one wants to deal with it. So first off, the government shutdown. This is actual news because actual people are being affected by it. But it's been going on for 34 days. It is the longest government shutdown in history, and the previous longest one was in 95-96, which was only 16 days. So we're double the time. In fact, we might be 35 days. Anyway, it's been a good long while, much longer than anything else in the past. And who are feeling the effects of not having these the federal government at work? So far, well, I personally have not felt the effect at all. But I'm also not a federal worker, and I haven't flown anywhere recently. So those are probably the two things that you might be feeling that, but I haven't felt it because I haven't been there. What honestly should we learn from this? The government shutdown, in my opinion, should last forever. Because I will get to the budget here very soon about our national debt, our unfunded liabilities, and so on. There is so much money that should not be used in the places that it's used because we just don't have it. We frankly just don't have the money. And the fact that the TSA is employed by the federal government is a dumb idea. You go to San Francisco and it's privately funded, and so it's probably moving over there just fine. But if you go anywhere else where the TSA is a federally funded, it's probably starting to have some problems. So why is it public? Why should we lay this on the shoulders of the government? It's because of labor and promises that have been made. But logically, if you go to San Francisco, anytime you fly into San Francisco, the waits are not there. They don't exist. You go straight through. It's I mean, I don't know if I'd say it's a joy to go through security, but in any case, it's much, much faster and easier. When I fly, I live close enough to Vegas that I fly out of Vegas. And Vegas, there are times when you go there, if you're going there during a high time, it is so difficult to get through there and to make it to your flight on time if you're a little bit behind. Or even if you're right on time. If the line's too long, you're just not going to make it there very fast. So why we continue to employ the TSA the way that we are? Because it is a labor force that politicians want to keep in place, even though it doesn't make any sense. Okay, so I say this is a good way to bring out the flaws of the federal government. Let the TSA be private. Let it be private. It's better when it's private. You don't have this problem when it's private. And all those other federal workers, if you're still not able to work and you're working for free, quit. Find another job. The economy is great right now. Go find another job where you're not under the thumb of the federal government. Sure, there are pensions that's probably, you think, well, I'm only this much. I mean, if you're a year away from your pension, then stick around. But if there are other things like that happening where you can leave and you're not going to be sacrificing a huge amount of pension in the next couple of years, then leave. Just leave. Okay? The pension, if you just started working in the government, the pension's not going to be there anyway before too long. We don't have the money. There is zero money in the coffers of the United States Treasury. Okay? We pretend there is, but there isn't. Anyway, so that's the whole thing. Government shutdown, why is it still happening? Because President Trump wants his wall. He wants his wall on the southern part of the United States between Mexico and us. And real quickly, the logical and moral concept of this. Okay, so if you have land, have a big piece of land, and you have people that have committed violence on that land, or if you have people that are just coming across and having a picnic on your yard, it's your land. Why would that be good? Especially if there's violence being committed. And there has been violence. I mean, you've seen the coverage of the violence that's taken place at the southern border. And recently, there's 10,000 plus people that are coming. There's a caravan of people coming that is just growing more and more and more and more. And the whole thing with Venezuela, which we'll get to in a second, has just made it even worse. So, the wall, I don't have an issue with the wall. Excuse me. I don't have an issue with the wall because, logically, if you have somebody coming in to your property illegally and committing illegal acts, then I'm going to put it up. If one person did that on my property, I would put up a fence. I don't want people in there that are going to threaten my family and my children. Okay, so I would put up a fence. It doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if it was only one time. It doesn't matter. I would put up a fence. I consider it completely fine. I consider it incredibly logical and moral because I want to protect my family 100%. So I'm applying it on the extreme there. If I apply that on the extreme, then it makes sense. And then you say, well, doesn't that only benefit one party? Well, it's my land. The only party I need to consider on my land is the people living on said land. I can't kill people on my land. That would be a different moral question, especially if you can get out of it. But that hasn't been employed at all. If people come across the Mexican United States border, no one's killed. People have died. That's because of days and days of not drinking water. You can't survive without water, unfortunately. So these are the different things. These are the different components surrounding the wall, and it applies logically and morally. There isn't an issue with it. The Democrats should just give him the money. Let's just get this done. I mean, this would be another good thing that President Trump has done outside some of the dumb things that he's done. But I guess I should say illogical things that he's done. But, that's just kind of the way that it is. And whether or not Pelosi and Schumer are gonna give in and finally make a deal remains to be seen. But in my opinion, keep the government shut. I don't care. In fact, I would rather the government stay shut down and that the IRS is in full function. Who cares if the IRS is in full function? And there has been things raised about the FDA. The FDA, there is some I've been in that industry before, and there is some good that takes part in the FDA to one degree or another. But for this sort of stuff, not so much. They're talking about, hey, there hasn't been as many notices issued. There hasn't been as many, these sort of things happening. And I'm not concerned with that. Most of the time, federal government workers are just trying to do their job, and so they find an issue. I've been in an FDA audit before, and they find things that are problematic, that aren't actually problematic. Sometimes they make, they make a mountain or a molehill into a mountain, and it's not really that. So I'm not all that concerned about it. And let's be real, if you're sending out crappy food out to people, they're going to get sick, you're going to get sued, and you're going to go out of business. So, I mean, if there's anything that's going to prevent people from doing things in the FDA realm, it's that. So, not concerned about it, not worried about it, and I don't think anyone else should be. Keep the government shut down forever. Those of you that are working in public positions, find another job, transfer to another essential, quote-unquote, government department if you are looking to maintain your pension. If you just started, find a job in the private sector. You're going to do better there anyway, because the U.S. government's going to be bankrupt before too long. All right, so then we'll go on to the next bit of valid news. And Kamala Harris just announced to run for president. There are a ton of people that are looking to run for president. Let me just search this real fast. There's probably more people that have come up. But something to consider. You shouldn't ever just exclude somebody in the Democratic Party that should run for president just because they're a Democrat. I think that's wrong. That is illogical entirely, and it's discriminatory. So you don't want to do that. So the Democratic Party, we're looking up the presidential candidates. So the presidential candidates right now, it says the top 15. I'm checking on the Washington Post, and we have the top 20. And not all these people have actually announced their presidency, but they're just looking at different options as to who could be a good option. But the most recent, of course, we've got Kamala Harris, we've got Elizabeth Warren. I don't know if Bernie Sanders has announced it yet, but Joe Biden may have, Cory Booker, most of which will probably announce their presidency because they're trying to do anything they can. It's going to be like the Republicans last year when they started out with 16 or 17 Republican presidential candidates, and they whittled down, obviously, to President Trump. But I think the same thing is going to happen with the Democratic Party because everybody wants to run for president because they hate President Trump, and they hate him I think they hate him for two reasons. One reason is he's Republican, and for some reason Democrats and Republicans just hate each other's guts, and it shouldn't be that way. It's illogical. Once again, just because you're a Democrat doesn't mean anything is wrong with you. It just means you see the world, you adhere to different things. But as mentioned here, don't be a Democrat, don't be a Republican, be your own self. Okay, don't take marching orders from the Republicans or Democrats. So, but that's significant news in the sense that this is really starting to ramp up. More and more people are going to get in there by June. I suspect the majority of the candidates will have announced their presidency, their candidacy, and then they're going to start up the debates, which I'm excited for. I love presidential debates, and it'll be interesting to see what they have to say. Because, if there is some of the Democratic, the folks that ran for the Democrats that ran for the presidency last year, I'm trying to remember his name, but there was one of the Democrats that I really liked. I really liked him. He was former military. He laid down some very logical information, and he'd been through the rigmarole. He'd shown himself in many ways in government life, which I'm a little on the fence on sometimes, but he definitely had made his way up there. And it's really interesting that Well, he was kicked out pretty quick because obviously the front runner was going to be Hillary Clinton anyway, so it was what it was. But I thought he would have been a good candidate. I'm trying to remember his name, and if you're interested in knowing who it is, I'll find it and I can send it to you. But just let me know. Anyway, the next bit of real news is that Venezuela is in complete chaos. Nicolas Maduro is being protested. There was a protest just a couple days ago. There was 100,000 plus people out there opposing him. And why is this happening? This is it's a communistic, socialistic type government. And when they are for the people, when they believe that they are for the people in trying to redistribute that wealth through their oil reserves, they found no success whatsoever. Because the fact of the matter is anything that you've looked back that's dictatorial or socialistic has failed miserably when it comes to the governance. And it's worse so in Venezuela. It is so dangerous to go to Venezuela. Never go to Venezuela. Don't go to Venezuela right now unless you got a bunch of cops around you. Okay? Because 22% of all murders 22% of all murders were committed by the government. Okay? And per 100,000 people, it increased from 25 murders to 45 murders within the last 5 to 10 years. That is an incredible amount of murders. Okay? Probably one of the worst things, though, is 87% of their population is in poverty. 87%. Can you imagine if 80% of the United States was in poverty, where you didn't have, the poverty level in the United States. Let's see. Poverty in America. So, poverty in America. This is when you are $2 a day. Extreme poverty in the United States, meaning households live on less than $2 per day. $2 per day? That is crazy. That's how it is. This is based on poverty in the United States. I know some poverty demographics from the United States. Anyway, but if you were living on $2 a day, I don't know how I'd do it. I'm not sure how that would be possible. You would have to live on the street for sure, because there's no way you could even pay for your electrical bill on $2 a day. And that's 87% of Venezuela right now. It's terrible. And part of it is that because the reason that poverty is happening, they're living on $2 a day, and it was probably relatively cheap at one point, but the goods and services were going up 20% every year. So within 5 years, you got a 100% increase. It's double the price. So it's completely crazy. They nationalized the oil industry, and among other things, you can't start a business in Venezuela without it being taken over. And so, in response to this, the United States has said, at least Mike Pompeo, the Secretary of State, he's indicated that the U.S. will send aid. And I'm on the fence about this because who are they sending aid to, and how is it going to be distributed? If it's going to be distributed directly to the people to help them, that's one thing. If it's being sent to the government, it's not going to do anything. It's going straight into a hole. Nothing will happen if it's sent directly to the Venezuelan government. It has to be given to the citizens there if they want to help in any way. But the other part that I have an issue with is that we don't have any money. Okay? Recently, a friend of mine passed away, extremely unexpected. It's very sad. A very young family with a baby on the way, and they set up a GoFundMe account, and people were going around donating to it, and they did really, really well. They got a lot of money, and I'm really grateful that happened. And when things like that happen, there is a emotional desire to send money, and I think there is a huge benefit to doing something like that. And so I think that if the United States is going to send money, they have to do it in a logical way. They have to pull from something else. They can't just send, they have to pull from something else. They have to balance their books just like everybody else. But they don't. So I don't suppose that anything like that will happen. But the aid will probably be sent to Venezuela. If it's sent to the Venezuelan government, nothing will happen. If it's sent directly to the people, there's probably going to be riots. There's probably going to be some very serious things that are going to happen in efforts to get that aid. So it all depends on how it's distributed, how it's done. They might be able to do it very effectively, and it would be very good. But as far as the money goes, the United States should be pulling from something else that does not have an essential function in the government, so that they can provide this aid to the Venezuelans. And I think it would benefit the United States in the long run, but morally, but logically and financially, they'd be struggling, and they already are. So the next bit of actual news is Roger Stone, but again, this could be in diffusing bombs, but fool's bombs. But this is on the line. Roger Stone, who is a former Trump advisor, political advisor, he was arrested. He was picked up by the Mueller investigation, and so supposedly this is moving forward. But I mean, I've been on the fence. Initially, when they announced it, there was going to be collusion. Let's see what happens. But it's been over 2 years now. I mean, if you look into any politician, if you look into anyone in the government, at some point you're going to pick up bad actors. It's just going to happen. Like, it just happens. But in this case, I'm not very moved by it, not very motivated by it. I don't think anything will come of it. There isn't any real information that's connecting Trump to colluding with Russia. And I'm trying to understand why, collusion isn't 100%. I mean, it's not good, but it's not illegal. If he colluded with the Russian government that said, hey, why don't you try and put down Hillary's campaign or whatever. I mean, collusion, it's not a huge case to be made, and I don't know why. The only reason it's hung on to is, again, there's ulterior political purposes. But frankly, I think the American people are just sick and tired of hearing about it, because it's nothing. It's garbage. Again, should be in the trash. The next bit of news we have here is the State of the Union has been postponed due to the fact that they don't want President Trump talking about the wall. I mean, that's the only thing I can draw. Originally it was security issues, but that was debunked by the actual people that run security. And then it was, let's just wait till it's over, all that sort of thing. And so let's just wait till the government shutdown is over. And so if there's no State of the Union, who cares? I don't think it really matters. I mean, they communicate so frequently that why does there need to be a State of the Union address now anyways? And as far as that to the who actually watches the State of the Union? Outside, just to get weird platitudes and things out of it that you can criticize and make fun of and hollowly believe in. I don't understand the State of the Union and the purpose thereof. I don't think it matters that it's postponed. I don't think it matters if it's even said. So, and that's from a logical standpoint. Standing in front of your peers and delivering a big speech about your life or about your current situation doesn't need to happen. Okay? At the end of the day, when it comes to something like this, it's broadcasted as needed when needed. And the State of the Union, at the time, it was probably a bit more relevant, but I don't think it matters as much anymore. Anyway, and on to the biggest piece of news of all, which, in my opinion, should be front and center, 100% of the time, 100% coverage, and they should be and the media should be pressuring the United States government to get their act together. And this is, of course, our crushing debt. Our current debt is $21 trillion. Okay, that's the current debt. But the one that is even scarier is our unfunded liabilities, $210 trillion. That means they just haven't put it on the books. Unfunded liabilities. And our income, you know what our income is? It's $3.4 trillion. So, for example, if we were to take all of that income, $3.4 trillion, and apply it to our unfunded liabilities and our national debt, it would take us 68 years to finally get out of debt. Isn't that mind-blowing? I mean, people take out 30-year loans, which I don't think you should be getting yourself into debt that long. Anyway, that's another discussion for another day. But that's 30 years. This is 68 years. Okay, 68 years of paying every cent that you bring in to overcome debt. And then you have people in the government, both sides and in the middle, proposing more spending. How illogical is that? And when you are illogical long enough, you become stupid. And so we just have a bunch of stupid people sitting in Washington talking about how they're going to spend the money that they don't have. At some point, this debt is going to be called in. At some point, the interest, in fact, I think it's in 2020, I'd have to read the report, but in 2020, the interest is greater than our income. So essentially, we can't even get out of it. There's nothing we can do. The only thing we possibly could do is, I don't know. Honestly, I'm not even sure. We just have to have a massive benefactor who's got trillions of dollars, who doesn't exist, to bail us out. That's the only thing that could happen in order to save us. But then we'd have to commit to not do anything ever again, because the government stinks at everything. You know, as soon as you insert the government, everything goes to garbage. Okay, so this is what should be covered constantly, but it's not. And the plan forward in order to overcome this, honestly, the only plan that I actually see that for us to overcome this is if we have a very meager small government, and we are literally, we'd have to charge a bit more taxes, or we'd have to invest in some way. That's probably the better way to go, or to do to do a consumption tax where everybody pays, and we're able to begin to pay off this debt over the period of several years. That's the only way in the current situation in which that would be able to be accomplished. But as it stands now, no one cares about it. No one's looking at it. No one even, I mean, occasionally you'll hear conservatives talk about it, but I mean, who wants to hear harping on this every single day? Fact of the matter is, nobody does, and that's why they just sort of hide it. But it will destroy the United States. Debt will destroy the United States, no matter what happens, unless something drastic happens. If someone forgave our debt, I mean, I'm not sure what it could be, but that's the only way we could overcome this craziness. Just because we spend, and nobody takes into account the end result. So it's, you think you're going to be okay, but I can't imagine once the debt's interest is beyond our income, we will default. If you can't pay the interest, we will default. I mean, they're not even paying off the principal. They're just expanding the debt. That's all they're doing. They're not even paying the principal. They are just paying. It's like you get out a massive credit card debt, and all you're doing is you're paying the interest on that credit card debt and not actually paying it off. That's like the minimum you can pay. That's what the United States is doing every single year. They're barely squeezing by. And in 2020, our overall income is going to be greater. It will be greater. And I should probably check that. I'll next week I'll double check on that but it's like 2020. It's within a couple of years that the interest on our loans will be greater than our income. And at that point, how on earth are we paying it off? We're going to take out more debt to pay for our debt. That is ludicrous. Anyway, there's my rant. There's my last rant. That's probably the thing I get most emotional about. But so here we are. Ditch your party, think critically, and vote for people that are actually going to affect our government. Vote for people that are going to make a real difference, that are going to make us free again. We don't need all these laws. We don't need all these things. Allow us to function logically and morally, and things will go much, much better. We are the most logic and awesome podcast in the nation. Share it with your friends.